They say some houses breathe. Not with lungs or breath, but with memory, humming beneath the walls, pulsing through the floorboards. I never believed it, until I walked into the house I didn't know existed. My name is Caleb Monroe, and I'm 41 years old. I was a loan officer in Des Moines, Iowa. My life? Quiet, neat, predictable. I like my spreadsheets, my routine, my morning coffee. I avoided drama, confrontation, and anything that didn't come with a clear balance sheet. Then one evening, everything shifted. A lawyer called. Calmly, matter-of-factly, he told me my estranged uncle, one I'd barely heard stories about, had passed. And he'd left me a house. A house I didn't even know was in my family. I should have felt grateful. But his next words chilled me. It's located in Grayson Hollow, up in the forested hills of northern Oregon. No power. No running water. Locals call it the Still House. Still House. Why would anyone call a home that? My curiosity overpowered my caution. I packed lightly. I didn't tell anyone I was going, just a note to my friend Liam in case I didn't check in. I told myself it was just a property to assess, clean, maybe sell. That's all. But the moment I arrived, I knew I'd stepped into something I wasn't prepared for. Grayson Hollow was barely a town. A general store, a diner, and a handful of cabins. The old man who handed me the keys didn't ask for my name. He just nodded slowly and said, "You're the one who came." Took long enough. The road to the house was winding, pine needles blanketing the gravel. Fog clung low to the trees, and the deeper I drove, the quieter everything became. Like the woods themselves were holding their breath. And then I saw it. Perched at the end of a cracked driveway stood a weather-worn house, tall and crooked. Windows boarded. Chimney leaning. But it wasn't just the look of it, it was the feeling. Like the house was waiting. As I stepped onto the porch, the wind stopped. Not slowed, stopped. Complete stillness. My key turned with a sharp click, and the door creaked open. Inside, it smelled of cedar, dust, and something faintly sweet. The kind of scent that lingers after someone leaves, or maybe, after they never left at all. The furniture was covered in sheets, but everything was untouched. A fireplace still held ashes. A teacup sat half full on the mantel. I called out, just once. "Hello?" Silence. Then, a sound. Faint. A low creak upstairs. Like a footstep. I froze. I knew I was alone. But that sound wasn't the house settling. It was deliberate. Measured. I should have left. But I walked toward the staircase. And that was the moment I realized this wasn't just a house. It was a door. And something on the other side had just noticed me. I stood at the bottom of the staircase, heart pounding, ears straining for that sound again. Nothing. Only the hush of old wood and breathless air. I told myself it was the wind. A falling object. A raccoon, maybe. But deep down, I knew better. That creak had rhythm, intention. Like someone shifting weight slowly on a floorboard, just out of sight. I climbed the steps anyway. The second floor was darker than the first. A long hallway stretched out, lined with closed doors. I opened them one by one, an empty bedroom with peeling wallpaper, a bathroom where the mirror was cracked straight down the center, a guest room filled with faded books and dust-thick shelves. Then, at the end of the hallway, I found it. A door that didn't match the others, darker wood, heavier. And locked. Not with a knob, but with a keyhole shaped like an old iron leaf, something I'd never seen before. I tried the keyring the lawyer gave me. None fit. Just as I turned to leave, a draft of cold air wrapped around my neck. I shivered and looked back at the locked door. That's when I noticed it, a faint outline near the floor. Like a panel. A seam. I crouched, brushing away dust. The panel popped open under my fingers, revealing a small crawl space. The moment I peered inside, I felt it, a hum, low and steady. Not a sound. A vibration, almost alive. I crawled in. The tunnel was narrow and led to a small chamber behind the locked room. Inside, under a rotted blanket, I found a wooden box carved with strange symbols. Shapes that looked both tribal and geometric, like a language I wasn't meant to read, but could somehow feel. Inside the box, an old photograph. It showed a man who looked disturbingly like me. Same dark hair, same eyes. But the photo was dated 1908. And next to it, a worn leather journal. Most of the writing had faded, but one sentence had been etched so hard it broke through the page. The blood remembers. The house keeps what we forget. I stared at that line for what felt like hours. Who was this man in the photo? Why did he look like me? And what did that sentence mean? I returned to the hallway, the journal tight in my hand. The house was silent again. But now, I felt watched. Not by something hostile. No. It felt more like expectation. Like the house was asking, do you remember now? That night, I made a fire in the downstairs hearth, not to keep warm, but to feel safe. As flames danced, I read through the journal by candlelight. Some entries mentioned dreams. Others, warnings. But then I found a page that shook me. If you've come back, Caleb, it means the cycle has begun again. My breath caught. He wrote my name. I looked at the photo again. The man wasn't just similar. He was identical. And that's when I realized, this wasn't just a home left behind by an uncle. It was a house built to remember me. Or at least, a version of me I had yet to understand. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Not after reading a journal written by someone who looked exactly like me, with my name, a century ago. I stayed by the fire, listening to the creaks and whispers of the old walls, wondering if the house had always known I'd return. By morning, the fog outside had thickened. The forest around the house stood still, like time itself had paused. I walked through the halls again, slowly now, not as a stranger, but as someone the house had been waiting for. I returned to the locked door at the end of the hallway. Only this time, I didn't bring the keys. I brought the box. When I placed the carved box gently against the door, I heard it. A faint click from deep within the wood. I turned the handle. It opened. The air inside was dry and cool, untouched for decades. Sunlight filtered through a small circular window, casting a beam onto the center of the room. There, arranged in a perfect circle, were objects I had no memory of, but felt drawn to instantly. A folded quilt with patterns I'd never seen but somehow recognized. A wooden flute resting on a woven mat. And in the middle, an empty chair facing a mirror. I stepped toward it. As I stood before the mirror, I expected to see myself. But what I saw was the man from the photo. The same sharp eyes, same quiet weight in the shoulders. Only, he moved when I didn't. He lifted his hand. I didn't. He leaned forward. I stayed still. Then he spoke. Not aloud, but in my mind, his voice calm, aged like wind through pine needles. You've been away too long, Caleb. But now, the circle can begin again. I didn't understand at first. But the more I stood there, the more I felt something waking up in me. Memories that weren't mine. Or maybe, they were. I saw a cabin in the woods. I saw people dancing around a fire. I saw hands weaving symbols into cloth, painting stories onto walls. Generations. Loss. Renewal. And I saw him, my reflection, watching it all. I staggered back, breathless. That night, I stepped outside under the stars. The sky above the forest was clearer than anything I'd ever seen. I lit a small fire by the porch and wrapped the quilt around my shoulders. I didn't need answers anymore. The house hadn't been built to hide the past. It had been built to preserve it. Not just for one man, but for a bloodline. For memory. And now, it was mine to carry forward. In the weeks that followed, I stayed. I restored the house, not with modern upgrades, but with care. With honor. I brought in help from the nearby town. Elders who spoke of traditions. A local historian who recognized the patterns in the quilt as part of a lost artisan circle. We opened the house as a memory center, not a museum. People didn't visit to stare at relics, they came to remember. And I changed. I stopped being the quiet banker who avoided conflict. I became someone who understood the weight of silence. The strength in remembering. The peace of belonging. Sometimes I still see the man in the mirror. He doesn't scare me anymore. He's part of me. He always was. This house never needed protection. It was protecting me. And now, finally, I remember.